Congressman, before you go, I want to ask you a question on another topic and just get a sense of what's in your heart on this. Do you think it's time to take a look at assault weapons and discuss possibilities of changing laws pertaining to them?
Well, we can discuss that, but I have 4 young children. I have a 6-year-old, and that strikes in my heart what occurred. But again, what has bothered me the most as a representative is how this has been politicized so quickly that somehow, if we had changed one single law, which, as I understand that, the state of Connecticut had laws against these kind of things, and somehow that would have changed things. But what I agree on, I think everybody can agree on, we've got a cultural problem. You know, I've got an 11-year-old, and the type of video games you just talked about, we don't let him play that. Let's have the moms and dads of Americans stand up and actually take control of their children and actually do the best they can. We've got a mental illness issue here. We can continue to talk about that. But Washington has to recognize that there's no simple solutions. This has been going on a long time in terms of our culture.
But is it time to look at assault weapons?
Will that solve the problem? I don't believe so.
So
it's not a gun problem. It's a people problem.
It's not a gun problem. So tell me, why do Americans need assault weapons? Why do they need these high-capacity clips? Why do they need a Bushmaster? Can you tell me why?
Well, you know what? There's been a lot of misleading statements, including those that are said right here, and saying that somehow, if we ban a gun, that somehow criminals won't get those guns.
I'm asking.
That's the reality here. It's not a gun problem.
It's not a gun problem.
There's a person doing that.
Silly. Yeah, so compare the United States to other industrialized Western countries and look at the
compare Washington. Let's actually look at Washington D.C., where the ability to get a gun is extremely limited.
Right.
Does that change the violence?
By the way, with Virginia right next door with the most permissive loopholes for gun shows?
Yeah.
I'm asking,
honest people aren't breaking the law.
Do you believe I have a constitutional right to have an assault weapon? Do you think that James Madison, when he drafted the Bill of Rights, meant for me to have the ability to have an assault weapon? Is this a constitutional issue for you?
I think it's an issue of the Second Amendment. It says we have the right to protect ourselves. The Supreme Court has upheld that. But gosh, let's step back. Let's not build on the tragedy in Connecticut and use that to actually push a political agenda.
Use that?
So, yeah, let's say your heads for a bill.
To push a political agenda? Let me ask
absolutely.
You,
this president and his folks are using this to push.
After September 11th, Congressman? Were there some changes made in this country because of the tragedy of September 11th? Was that just using a tragedy, 3,000 deaths, to try to make Americans safer? Do you dare come on my show and say I am using the slaughter of 20 little 6- and 7-year-old children? I'm using
Joe,
that
how many
for
children
political
do you
purposes,
have?
Tim?
Joe, how many children do you have?
I've got 4 children, Tim. Answer my question.
So do I. And I refuse to let you say that because you have children or anybody else that we need to actually politicize this. But I see folks in Washington, I don't know about you, I don't watch your show, I see my colleagues in Washington trying to politicize this.
I'm not going to let you say that I am, quote, politicizing the slaughter
I said the president
of 26
was politicizing
or 7 children. But you said anybody that's talking about this.
Doesn't Connecticut have a ban on assault weapons?
Maybe some of us just believe, Tim, maybe some of us just believe we have to do whatever we can, whether it's looking at mental health, whether it's looking at a violent culture of video games and Hollywood movies, whether it's looking at the proliferation of these weapons, whether it's looking at what happened in Oregon, what happened in Colorado, what happened in Virginia, what happened in Connecticut, what continues happening, Congressman. So we can't at least talk about guns without you questioning my integrity and saying that I'm using the death of 20 children to try to make life for my children a little bit safer. We can't even talk about it without you coming on this show and insulting me personally. Joe, you can talk about it
all you want. I didn't say it was you politicizing it. You're not even a politician anymore, and I understand that. But you look around this town. You look at within 24 hours, folks running on and say, hey, we need to change the laws when they don't even know the situation.
Sir.
All I'm saying is let's spend a little time looking at that, but not to use the tragedy because as a very famous political strategist from Chicago said, don't let any crisis go unused.
So let me get this straight. So you can come on this show and say what I've said, by the way, that we've got to look at violent video games and we've got to look at a violent culture that Hollywood promotes. And that's not politicizing, but if we even bring up guns, that somehow that's politicizing the death of 20 children.
You know,
Wow.
What I said, Joe, was I've got an 11-year-old son,
Yeah.
and I have a choice whether he's allowed to play those video games. What I would suggest to moms and dads across this country is look at what your children are doing. Get engaged, let the communities get engaged, and I think that would be a solution that will help the problem here.
All right,
and
Congressman.
I'm not saying to pass a single law about that, because I think that would be politicizing